Bald and Blonde. Welcome to the Mindset Evolution podcast. The podcast to get tools for a powerful mind you can use immediately every day. Get tips, tricks, skills, and inspiration to create what you desire and achieve a content life wherever you are. And here are your hosts, Kathi and Daisy Pup.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution, the podcast that gives you tools for a powerful mind. I'm Kathi Tate, your host from Australia. With me, as always, your host from America, Miss Daisy Pup. Hi, Daisy.
Hello, my dear friend. I'm so glad to see you and create another episode. And we're recording. Yes, we're on. And please, dear listeners, go and subscribe to the show and click a big like and share our show because we made it into 86 countries through you, your word of mouth. So you're very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So, dear Kathi, what are we recording today?
I've got a juicy topic today, and it is one that haunted me most of my younger years. I want to talk about external validation and the need for it and how society conditions us for that. I think it's an important conversation and one that will certainly help a lot of people perhaps shed this mindset.
Wow, you really have a great talent to choose juicy topics along some less juicy ones. And I appreciate you bringing this topic onto this podcast because I agree that it is important to speak about it because external validation, as it says, it's external, has not really to do with us. It's not internal, but I can be addicted to it. So what do we do with it and how can we stop being addicted to the external validation?
Yes, although it is all about external, I think there is an internal portion to it. I think the internal portion is that we are conditioned to need it, especially, I'm going to say, as young girls. Because often, or it was in the times when I was young, which admittedly is getting on a bit now, may not be happening as much today, but I was conditioned to need to look a certain way, to need approval about those looks, that society said we had to look a certain way to be deemed beautiful or pretty. When people talked to girls, it was, oh, aren't you lovely? Aren't you pretty? And it was all about your looks. It wasn't about your mind or your intelligence or your education or your experiences or your hopes and dreams. It was so often centered around our looks. And anybody knowing my story will get a gist of how devastating that was for me as somebody who didn't look normal. And I am just one of millions that suffered through that. And so I do think that internally this is an issue if you've been conditioned this way. When I say conditioned, I mean brought up with this belief system, whether it be from your parents, from school, from people around you, just the way they treat you and you pick this up. Like I didn't actually realize it was a thing till later in my life. I had no idea that this labeled condition, the need for external validation actually existed until someone accused me of needing it. And I was like, what? What is this? And then I started to learn about it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So super important conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you that there are specific expectations from society, from families, from cultures, from schools, from the environment where we live. And I understand that. And I think some of them really make sense and are supportive for society and for one living in a society. Nevertheless, the word external validation already shows that, okay, so when I'm only looking and I'm only going after the external validation, where's my own validation? Because I become less addicted and less dependent on the external validation when I have internal validation. So how do we increase that internal validation? How do we cultivate that? How do we nurture it? And how do we nourish it? How do we practice it? How do we live with it, grow it, and allow it to flourish? That is the key, because that's fact that there will always be people around who will judge you based on your looks or the lack of a specific look. There will be people who will deny you access to a specific circle because you just don't have the requirements needed to participate. I get that. And this is how the world rolls. I'm not sure if that is something we can really change. What we can change is how we evaluate it, how personally or not personally we take it, stopping taking it personally, and then starting to validate ourselves. When I increase and cultivate the internal validation, I become less dependent on the external validation. Now, how do we do that? Because there are specific ingredients that will build up that independence and that validation within me. When I know I did the best I could, number one, and I'm not trying to do the best I can, but actually do it, because there's a big difference between I try or I do it. Because when I try, I don't do it. That's not good enough. It's like that fork in the road. You either do it or you don't.
Yeah.
Which one do you participate in? Which one do you feed into? And when I start validating myself, it really goes back to my values. When I behave based on my values, on the standard of my values, I make these my standard, and I behave accordingly, then no matter if you validate me or not, I can still validate myself. If then you, in addition to that, validate me, then that's the icing on the cake. But I can still live without the icing, your icing.
That is true to a certain extent, although I have found that it does permeate into professional lives. I know that when I was younger, it would have been unheard of to hold any sort of public job with no hair as a woman. And I have heard heartbreaking stories still in today's decade. Certainly my stories are from 20, 30 years ago, but it is still happening around the world where women are ostracized for not looking a certain way and therefore wouldn't get a job in a certain role that's public facing. And I've heard so many stories of fear around this from people in the alopecia community. And I'm sure that it's not limited to alopecians either. And you throw out there, can we change society? I think that we can. I think that it is a matter of the numbers game and enough people standing up and saying, no, that shouldn't matter. That isn't what's important about a person. And I think that it's starting to change. There is a lot more people being open and vocal about things that used to be kept a secret 2 decades ago. And so I am starting to see some change, although, like I say, it isn't everywhere yet and there are still some barriers. But I would never have dreamed of meeting my accounting clients without a wig on 20 years ago. Would never, ever have been something that I would dare to do because of this lack of acceptance. And I do it now when nobody even blinks. And, you know, I'm tattooed as well, which adds a whole nother element to how I look. And in some realms, that isn't acceptable either. But I have my own internal validation and don't care what they think. And so I just carry on regardless. And I think people pick up on that. And so I think you're right. The answer is to increase and cultivate our own internal validation. Because that is how we change society. By more of us having internal validation and this self-belief and then behaving based on those values. That's how society changes, when the masses change. But it starts with each and every one of us and then adds up like a stone rolling down a hill. A snowball, a snowball rolling down a mountain. It's going to gather more snow and get bigger and bigger. And I believe that is one of the paths to change.
I agree with you. When I say that we cannot change society, I mean it. Because here's what happens. I think the society changes when we change. It's not that, okay, I'm going out and I want to change society. No, I change me, and based on wherever I go and how I behave and my attitude and how I evaluate it. Or let's say somebody says to me, Daisy, okay, if you weren't blonde, I would really take you for the job. I would really want to do coaching for my company, but you're not blonde. And then I can this is just an example. I can then tell them, okay, so you either want really someone who brings you great results, or you really put more value on the color of the hair. What is it that you really want? You want results, or you go about the looks? And then if that's the case, that you're going about the looks, now I'm really concerned if I'm really the right person for you or the right consultant for you, because I don't think that we are in any alignment. Now, I'm not going out there to teach them a lesson, or I'm telling them I'm going to change society. No, I change me, and that inspires others to change too. And then the consequence, the natural effect of the cause, because I'm causing that effect. And it takes a long time to change society, or a tragedy that people are shaken. And it's, for example, what you saw, what recently happened in Syria and Turkey, the earthquake. It's just horrendous. It's horrifying how many people suffered and died. And the aftermath of that is just absolutely very saddening. And I wish I could do more to support them. Now, changing society is a big task and requires many little aspects, but they all depend on individuals. And the many individuals build the society. So it requires awareness, clearly, but it requires also inspiration. We need more inspirational leaders, I think. Not motivators. Yes, do that and you can do that. No, those who stand there and they are so admirable in the way how they lead their lives, their mindset, their behavior, their tone of voice, their thoughts, their mindfulness, their attentiveness, them being very polite. That is very inspiring. And then it works like a magnet. It's not like you come here and you must join. No, people will join automatically when they see that, oh, wow, it feels good. Why would you stop doing something that feels good? That's why there's so many people doing things that are not healthy, but it feels good. And they think it's good, but it's not. So I think it is really when we go back to cause and effect. And we have a huge opportunity now because people are more sensitive due to what happened over the past 3 years on the globe. So people are more alert. They say, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so where are we going with all that? So we are many more now, I think, than before 2020. And that is something that, as you say, the snowball effect, it's not the snowball system, but the snowball downhill, becoming larger, and the momentum is there and it becomes bigger in volume and in masses. And maybe other snowflakes say, oh, I want to be part of that snowball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to say, I think there's one giant upside to this whole external validation thing. And it's that it weeds out the people that you aren't in alignment with. Now, let me tell you that dating as a bald woman was very scary and intimidating. And the first time, a few years back now, when I put a profile picture on a dating app of myself with no hair, even before I was tattooed, it was terrifying. But you know what it did? I realized that it weeded out all the people that were so focused on looks and weren't really there to find a person to have a relationship and have intimacy and have a connection with. And so I started to realize that actually looking this way was a huge advantage to me because if somebody did come and talk to me, I'd already connected with them. Something had happened in their life that they automatically either were curious about the way I looked, or they had some empathy, or they thought I was cool, or they loved my tattoo. And the question I got the most before I tattooed my head was, are you a survivor? And then once I tattooed my head, the question I get the most, and still do, did that hurt? And I'm like, this is great because now I've got this amazing conversation opener to increase awareness of alopecia with every person I meet. And so I think it can be an advantage if you think of it the right way and use it to your advantage. And I just want to throw that out there to listeners who may be feeling a victim of this. You need to take your power back and twist it to your advantage.
Well, it is a very good idea when we train ourselves to allow other people to reveal who they are. And we're back to observe behavior. And I had a session earlier today with a lady. I like her a lot. We're very friendly over the years. And I mentioned to her there's this 90-day rule that I also describe in one of my books, that people can psychologically, apparently that's what the psychologists say, can wear a mask and pretend to be someone they are not for 90 days. So actually, after the 90 days, it becomes really exciting when you see the people who they are without the mask. Now, it's a good idea, I think, to bring them into all sorts of settings. Meet with them when they are hungry. Meet with them when they are impatient. Meet with them when they are upset. Meet with them when they are tired. Meet with them when they have some problems around, because that will show you who they really are. Because you want to know before you, let's say, marry someone, or before you even think about dating, because you want to know who do you allow into your life. So let's turn it around. It's not about, okay, do they like me? No, the question is, when you don't like me, why should I like you? When you are superficial and you only judge me by the color of my hair, or judge you based on you not having hair, then, okay, I don't really think that I want to invest any time when that's the level of superficiality that you live your life by. And I wish you well from afar. Stay away from me. Not because I don't like you. I could like you, but show me who you are beyond the superficiality. What is it that made you stick with superficiality? What made you a judge without being in that trade? Because there are many people who are judges without ever being trained as such. That's not their occupation. So now, when we rethink and reevaluate, what is it that makes us human? Does my blouse make me look human? Maybe. But how do humane humans behave? What makes them humane? And then it doesn't matter if I'm barefoot or in high heels. It doesn't matter if I have the $5 bag or the $5,000 bag. It doesn't matter if I have hair or not, what color my eyes have. So when we who are curious in quality of humans surrounding us, when we become more aware and more selective, then it will be automatically attracting one another. So those who are interested in the quality of human values will find it extremely attractive when they see that in someone else. And maybe those who have never heard of how to be humane and what it really means to be human and how to respect other people's dignity as much as my own, most people are not aware of that. When we start speaking about it, and maybe I give you an example. You walk on the street and you see some people sitting on a bench and they laugh so loud and they laugh so contagiously funny. Aren't you curious of what are they laughing about? Isn't it attractive? Would you maybe, if you have the time, in case you are on your way to an appointment, then maybe not, but I would feel inclined. So what is it? I'd like to laugh with you. If it's so funny, share with me. So I think we can inspire by being less judgmental and less superficial. Now, the media is very guilty of that, and I rarely take on the role of a judge. In this case, I stand for it, although I'm not a judge, but in this case, I am judging the media. They're very guilty of that they say only if you use this razor blade, or only if you have your hair like that, or only if you wear this nail polish, or only when you have this style or that style, don't wear this color this season, or you must decorate your house in summer like that, in spring like that, in winter like that. These are things we can participate in, but don't judge me upon it. So I think. So the media, if they'd stop putting it, well, when you do this, you're the cool one. If they'd stop doing that and instead say, look, this product is really cool. It's amazing. Look what it can do. And you can choose, do you want to participate? Then there's no force in it anymore. And the effects will be different.
You're right. The media is all about marketing to sell things. And as we spoke of last week, it's all about manipulation. And it's manipulating you to feel something in order to sell you something. And that really reveals how superficial it is. And I think that a better way to go is for us to create a world where things are sold based on how good they are for you, how they can affect change in your life that's positive and that will help you. And it's a sad state of the world right now, and has been, I'm going to say, for the last 40 years at least, that the media is allowed to manipulate us this way. Now, I am going to throw this in. If the world's media wasn't owned by a handful of entities, maybe things would be different. And that is why citizen journalists are so important.
Absolutely.
And social media, in that we have individuals that are getting attention as opposed to mass media getting attention, I think they have a responsibility to act in a way that's more ethical as well. Now, there's a whole nother issue with who owns the social media platforms. We're not going to go into that. I would encourage you all to think about this and to be aware that is happening and it is manipulation on a mass scale, and to not get sucked into it, but rather assess things with a clear head. Am I being sold, or can this thing actually help me? And be aware of what's going on when people are trying to sell you something, because they're very clever. They've developed these techniques over many, many years, and it can be so subtle that you don't know it is happening to you unless you have the awareness of it happening in general. So wake up, people, and be aware of what you're being told, because it's not necessarily the truth. We can't walk around blind anymore. We have to be aware that this is happening.
Yeah, but let's go back to the external validation. So when we can increase our own validation, when I can celebrate my own values, when I can start really appreciating talents of mine, and even if no one cares, but if it's fun for me and I really like it, let's say I draw and let's say nobody ever likes my drawings, I can still enjoy the drawing, the process of it, and the enjoyment of hanging it on the wall or framing it. And I like to bring up my orchid again. I like to have an orchid here in my office, and usually I take it as an experiment. This poor dear actually is not being affected by it. So please, when I'm bringing on this experiment, don't think that it's harmful for her. But when I say, oh, look, this is so beautiful, and look at the orchid now. Or I say, look, this is so ugly and it's useless and it's a dust killer and it's a dust collector and it's a nuisance and it's stupid. Did the orchid change? No, it did not. So be the orchid more often. What others say about you, or how they validate you, or they are greedy in validating you, because I know people, they know exactly that there's something amazing that you did. They would never, ever say it out loud. They don't even want to think about it because they're jealous and envious. Some people suffer from that. We cannot change them. It's none of our business. Our business, I think, is to change how we evaluate it. And when we start valuing ourselves and evaluating our own talents and our own doings and have a healthy standard of human values and we live by those, then I'm totally independent from the external validation. Look, when I do something really good and I did it well, I can celebrate it. I'm so joyful about it. Is it good for me if someone else recognizes? Yes. But sometimes no one sees what I'm doing behind the scenes, and it doesn't matter. I still do it. Does it make it of lesser value? No. It only makes it of lesser value when I stop valuing it. You see, that's the kick.
Yeah, I've got a lovely little saying that fits really well here. And it's this: flowers don't chase the bees.
There you go. I agree with you.
Now, everybody, think about that. Think about the flower, and the bee comes to the flower because it wants something from the flower in order to make its honey. And the flowers just are flowers. They're beautiful, they bloom, they do what they're designed to do. It's like birds. They don't change their song because another bird is singing. They just do their song. We could take a lot of lessons from nature.
Yeah.
Especially in how we interact and treat each other. And so I think it's really important that we do. Once again, we're going to say it. It comes back to your internal values.
Yes. And I think when there are more people who can find a common ground and have common values and they stick together, it will be very peace-bringing to them. Now, I understand that not everyone must have the same values, but let's find the minimum of. So, for example, if there would be a global work ethics and a business ethics in place, so you cannot go to work when you're in a totally bad mood, for example. You first fix your mood and then come to work. That's what I would do if I had many employees. Fix it first and then let them handle things, because everything will have an effect, cause and effect. And the business ethics basics shall be that I'm not lying about my product. There must be transparency. And you can choose if that's good enough for you, or you want me to increase the quality, or you go elsewhere where they already have an increased quality. Now, if only these two things would change, we'd have already a totally different business and work life. So let's find the basics, the minimum. Don't lie to me, I don't lie to you, for example. To me, that's extremely important. That doesn't mean I need to share all my privacy with the world. No, that's my privacy. But I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say, yeah, this is a black orchid, although she's white.
Yeah, well, yes. I don't know how that works. I'm not sure that you see black instead of white, but you're quite right. We do need shared values that have a basic common standard, and definitely integrity and honesty. I think are two of them that we would all benefit from. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up there, Daisy. This has been a really good talk about external validation and how we can increase our internal validation in order to not need the external validation. And I really hope that it has helped some of our listeners out there. If you are feeling like you're still in the space that needs that, because I know I was stuck there for a long time because of how I grew up and what the world around me was telling me. Well, we're here to tell you it is not so. Make sure you share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues. And please go to baldandblonde.live and support us. If you can't donate the cost of a cup of coffee, we would love it if you would just tell everybody you meet about Bald and Blonde and help us reach our next goal of 100 countries. And may we continue to spread inspiration around the globe, Daisy.
Yes, absolutely. And please, if you have any topic ideas and feedback for us, please send us an email at ask@baldandblonde.live and visit our website and share. Please do, so we can continue airing these precious episodes for you. We love to serve you with tools, and we want that all of humanity can have access to them. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's it from us today. We'll be talking to you soon. We are Bald and Blonde.
Mindset Evolution. Talk to you next time. Thank you for listening in to the Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution podcast. Please share our podcast with your family and friends. Together, we make this world a better place. For you, for us, for future generations. Visit us at baldandblonde.live to get freebies, give feedback, and even support us with as little as $1. Talk to you soon.